Introduction before I hand it off to Matt. Hello everyone and welcome. We're so glad that you've joined us today for our free webinar. But before we begin, I just want to do a quick little, housekeeping notes, I like to call it. To minimize background noise and distractions, I have muted everyone, but you do have the ability to unmute yourself if you want to ask a question during the webinar. We are recording this and it will be shared with everybody that registered and posted on our website, as well as any resources. I have enabled the captions in the bottom of the screen for you, but if you find that to be distracting, you should be able to turn it off on your own. As I said, we warmly welcome your questions. You can drop them in the chat during the webinar, but we will have some time dedicated to answering questions at the end as well. If you have not located that chat box yet, please find that and drop your name and what organization you're joining us today. But we're so delighted to have Matt with us today, and we look forward to a great and informative webinar. On to you, Matt.
Okay. And by the way, I don't know if people give you enough credit for keeping this as like an actual Zoom meeting as opposed to a webinar where you can see people's faces and like actually I know as a speaker it's always great to see who you're talking to. So it is certainly not required for any of you to put on your cameras, but if so, I'd love to see it because it is just so wonderful to to be able to have that sense of community even when we're not in the same room. So hello. My name is Matt Pearl. I am so thrilled to be here today. I have to tell you, what we do is it's not just fulfilling, but I also think it's incredibly energizing. And for me, my job is energizing in multiple ways. I craft videos with nonprofits, and that is always just when I'm out shooting and seeing what they do and being up close to it is so beautiful. And then there are moments like these where I cannot say enough about how impressive it is to see as many people as we have here today. You're all taking an hour out of your Thursday. The end of the week is not far away, and I'm sure you all have plenty that you need to do, but you also understand the power of being here and learning and growing and what that means for both you as individuals and your organization. So just a true thank you to you for being here and for all you do. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and um, we'll begin the presentation. And let me do that one more time. Okay. Give me some thumbs ups in the chat if you can see the front screen. And obviously, I'm assuming you can hear me, or else we'd probably have figured that out by now. But again, thank you all for being here. This is truly a delight. I asked the team over at Nonprofit Leadership Center to send me a list of attendees in advance. And, it always helps me understand better who my audience is and how I should cater my presentation. And what I learned is that you all come from everywhere to be a part of this community. We've got massive healthcare systems, mid-sized nonprofits that have been around for years, young nonprofits, some as small as 1 to 2 people just establishing themselves and starting out. In the time that we have, I'm going to provide insights that I think will benefit you and apply to whatever level you're at. I also think that when we talk about video, and this is create a video strategy your nonprofit can afford and execute, I think you'll find that the core tenets about video, why it works, why it doesn't work, why you use it, those tenets apply no matter what the size of your nonprofit. So I'm excited to dig into that today with you all. I want to be clear, I've got a full hour on deck, and I'm happy to stay a little longer too after the fact. But what I really encourage you to do is ask questions as we go, and I will try to work them in because there will not be a whole lot of time for questions at the end. I wanted to make sure that we really pack this with information that you can use right away and that you can use to plan for the long term. So, with that said, let me get started with a simple question for all of you. And that is, why don't you use video? I would also frame it as what stops you from using video. And go ahead and please put it in the chat because I think this is such a fascinating question. I would love to hear from all of you what is it that stops you from doing video, right? And again, this applies across the board. Maybe you literally have never posted or used a video in your entire nonprofit's tenure. Maybe you've put up a video here and there, but you hold off from really investing in it. What stops you from doing that? Maybe you have invested in video. Maybe you've got a signature video, a video you use at a gala, but you hold off on consistent video content, whether that's in social media or across the board. So I would love for you to put into the chat what stops you from using video. I'll give it about 10, 15 seconds here before we go on. So I'm seeing editing. It's difficult to edit videos. Time and resources. We do use video, but I'm a team of one. I do not know the first thing about making a video. That's a legitimate reason. Lack of knowledge, lack of equipment. Um, Not sure what would be most helpful to include in a video. Need to clarify audience and purpose. Um, let's see. I use videos, but many of my staff members are afraid to create snippets to edit an ad, worried that the audience will think too low budget. Ideas that have been called too silly by leadership. That's a really powerful one. And I hope Krista, I hope you find that we address that today. Unsure the most effective way to do so. So clearly there are any number of reasons, right? And there are some super specific ones, and there are also some very broad ones. And I think if I had to categorize all of them into one main thrust, it's that quite simply, you're not sure it's worth the investment, right? So a lot of times that investment is time. It's taking the time to learn how to edit, to build the skills, to not just do video and produce videos, but to do it the right way. Simply knowing what kind of content to create. That all takes time. It sometimes takes time and often takes time, not just from you if you're running the show or if you're the marketing director, but it takes time from your team, from your leadership, from your staff. So you're not sure it's worth that investment. You're not sure it's worth the financial investment, right? If you've thought about hiring an outside video partner, money is a very, very real part of what holds people up. You've probably heard that video is the answer. You know it's important, but when you see it in practice, it doesn't necessarily feel like the answer. And the way I would frame that is it's not about video, right? I think people know video matters, but it's not about just doing video. We can't just use it because we think we should. We need to be clear-eyed about the purpose it serves. That's communicating impact, connecting meaningfully with your community, not in a superficial way, supporting your larger needs and goals, those very fundamental goals that help you stay afloat, that sustain you, that enable you to thrive. And then lastly, owning your story, right? Video storytelling is the best way to truly own the story of who you are. And I'll get into that a little more in a little bit. And what I would say is, and what I always say to my clients is that when it comes to doing video right, it's not about video. It's about video that gets used and remembered because it truly represents you, right? You want videos that don't just sit on a digital shelf. You want to be excited to use them. You want to know exactly how and why you're using them. And you want those videos to truly represent all you do. When that happens, results happen. And often they happen in ways that you don't even anticipate because it just has that kind of effect. So the for-profit world already is fully on board with this, right? Last year, there was a survey of marketers, and it found that 89% of businesses use video in their marketing. 93% of marketers say video has given them a good return on investment. And 99% said that video has helped increase their understanding of their product. But the difference between them and you is that so often they're selling a product and convincing you why it matters to you, right? When State Farm puts Caitlin Clark in a commercial, they're not selling State Farm. They're hoping you like Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark's in this ad, therefore you have a positive association and you think of State Farm down the road. As nonprofits, you have something that most for-profit businesses don't. And this is so important. You provide a service that makes the world better. And that means that you can lean in to what you do. The more you show it, the more you show it authentically, the more you connect. And nothing has the potential to do that quite like video. So that's why I'm here. For 20 years, I was a TV news reporter locally and nationally. I covered the Olympics 3 times. I won national awards for stories that found clarity and humanity in the issues that the news typically doesn't cover, the same kinds of issues that you are working on every single day, told the exact way that you should be doing too. I've also been a nonprofit board member for nearly 15 years. I serve on the board at Lecatech of Georgia. We provide adaptive play sessions, toys, and community activities for children with special needs. I helped build our storytelling culture despite a small staff and a small budget. And much of what we'll be talking about today is how I did that and the lessons you can take from that. And finally, now I run Pearl Impact Media, where I work with nonprofits around the country. I help them figure out their storytelling goals, and then I craft videos that help them achieve those goals. I will put up my information at the end if you'd like to reach out directly. But as for today, my goals and the objectives, hopefully for you all, are these. First, to provide a foundational understanding of visual storytelling, the roadmap to a strategy, no matter what your size, and finally, the confidence to try. But first, I want to show you a different video. It's not one of mine. Feel free to criticize and critique it because I think this video speaks to the struggle that a lot of us have when it comes to video. I'm going to be honest with you, oftentimes I am really underwhelmed when I watch the videos that nonprofits pay dearly for. And I want to address why. So let's watch this montage. I want you to imagine that there's an organization, let's say it's in the Tampa area, and this is what their video looks like. And I want you to write in the comments, why doesn't this video work? So here we go. Now this is, these are beautifully produced, vibrant colors, close-ups of hands holding, beautiful moments with family, got a two people moving, you've got sunsets, lovely footage. It's just beautiful. There's another sunset. It's great. There's maybe a father or a grandfather. There's a baby. There's a third sunset. Terrific. There's a very concerned man on the phone. Why doesn't this video work? I'll start reading off some comments. No story. Doesn't tell what the nonprofit does. There's no clear message anywhere. Unclear about the topic theme, lacks focus. No brand, just feels like stock imaging. No connection, no storytelling. Random visuals with no understanding. We still don't know what they are promoting. Who is the target? Not sure what it's about. The message is unclear. Okay. So I think you're all right on point with this, right? This video does not connect. And frankly, most nonprofit videos don't connect because for any number of reasons, and for me, the vantage point as a storyteller, a couple of things stand out, right? The video is in slow motion. Real life is not in slow motion. There's no natural sound in that video. Real life has natural sound, right? You're seeing waves, but you're not hearing them. You see that man on the phone, but you don't know what he's saying or why he's calling. And finally, and a few of you pointed this out, this is stock footage, right? I downloaded this from a subscription service. If I wanted, I could probably find an AI video company to produce this in like 30 seconds. But too often, nonprofit videos feel like this slow motion, often stage footage, generic music, a few scripted sound bites, and no real story. It feels artificial. It feels non-connective. And what it shows us is that, first of all, high production value isn't always necessary or an automatic sign that a video is strong. And authenticity is the key. The one thing this video is not is authentic. And if you think about your advantage as nonprofits, it is that you can be authentic to your audience. And your audience is not just ready for that and will respond to that, they are craving that from you. So not only is authenticity the key, but so is an answer to a fundamental question about video storytelling. And it's the first one that I want you all to answer about your organizations today. And that is why. Before you go anywhere with video, you need to be clear on why you're doing it, right? Because video is a powerful tool. It's also a broad umbrella. It can be a 10-second TikTok. It can be a minute-long testimonial. It can be a 3-minute signature video for your website. It can be a documentary film, right? So if you're going to use it, no matter your size, you need to answer these 3 questions. These are questions I ask every single client that I have. What are you trying to accomplish? Who are you trying to reach? And really important, what do you want them to do, right? Think about, what does success actually look like for you? Is it an increase in donations at an event? Is it a higher success rate with grant proposals? It might be a larger social media following, but only if that serves your goals, right? Having likes on a video doesn't translate to any more money in your nonprofit's pockets. So you have to figure out what is the purpose for you. And if you can, whittle it down into this one sentence. I would love for some of you to do this exercise and put it in the chat to just kind of get all of our minds going a little bit, right? I want to use visual storytelling to blank, reaching my audience of blank so that they will blank. So go ahead and again, for those of you, put a few in the chat here. And I just want to show you how this can affect your approach to video. Let's say your primary objective is fundraising, and that's why you want to get into video storytelling. Your statement might read something like this: I want to use visual storytelling to raise funds, reaching my audience of current and potential donors so that they will contribute money to our mission. Now, see the difference when we change the objective to raising awareness. I want to use visual storytelling to raise awareness, reaching the audience of the general public so that they will support us through donations, volunteerism, and advocacy. And these subtle differences affect the kinds of videos you might seek out. The fundraising nonprofit might focus on one singular video, right? Maybe a few minutes, a 3-minute video that they can play at an event or in a fundraising pitch, because that's the most effective way they can communicate with donors when they have their attention. The awareness nonprofit might look for a larger quantity of clips and a larger quantity of short clips for a consistent presence on social media. So that's the first thing you figure out. And the important thing too, you shouldn't try to do everything all at once. So I'd love for, again, a few of you to share yours in the chat if you would like. Meanwhile, I'm going to bring it back to Lecatech of Georgia. So Lecatech brought me on the board 14 years ago, and my charge was to build up our video in our social media. Now, our why wasn't fundraising and it wasn't overall awareness. It was increasing engagement among our Lecatech families. And because we knew that, and we've tried a couple of fundraising campaigns on Facebook, but they failed. I mean, they didn't fail, but they didn't do well, and they weren't really worth the time. But we knew we needed a way to not just communicate with our families, who often feel like they're in silos in terms of, they often feel alone, but wanting these families to be in community with each other. So we didn't try to do everything all at once. We started with Facebook because back in 2010, 2011, that's where our families were. And it's where many of them still are. We wanted our families to learn about our events, to see our newest toys, and to continually feel energized about our services. We wanted to cultivate a community. And 14 years later, our most watched videos reflect this. This is a top video from 2025 on our Facebook page. This is not stellar production value, guys. This is not a model video the way that I teach my one-on-one clients, right? It's not what you would necessarily set out to do. But what does this video do? It speaks to parents of our Lecatech children. This is from a very specific camp. So it's something for these parents to share, and it helps us build our community. It's not the perfect video, but that's kind of the point. Video doesn't need to be perfect. What it needs to do is serve your why. And sometimes it doesn't have to be from within, because our other top video from 2025, we didn't even produce it. Lecatech won a $100,000 grant from Gas South, and Gas South surprised our executive director. They walked in, they threw up confetti. It was pretty great. And they made a video from it that they were happy to share with us and that we could then share on our pages. Now, if you think about this, this was a $100,000 grant. This was a prize where our community needed to vote for us. So they already invested in us with their votes. And in this case, they also invested with their views. And the reason you put up a video like this is because when somebody invests in you, you want to share with them. This is the result of your investment, right? And because we had invested in them for all those years, building up our presence, they were happy to invest with us when it came time for this promotion. So not only was this a top watch video for us, but it's a reflection of how you can use video storytelling and a powerful overall presence to cultivate your community and to activate your community. So that focuses on the why. Again, I'd love for you to throw questions in the chat as you have them. I'm happy to answer them. The next part of this is the what, right? What kinds of videos actually move the needle and produce results? Now, this video reminds us that it's not necessarily about high production value and pretty pictures, right? It is about clarity of purpose. So that's where we start here. Let's go back to that question. Who is your audience, right? So if you're going to decide what you're going to do, you think, who am I trying to reach? What do I want them to do after watching? And also a question that oftentimes I don't think we ask enough. What do they want to hear from me? Right? It's not just about us trying to convince or steer our audience to do something. It's also about giving them what they want, right? I worked with a nonprofit in Atlanta, Community Farmers Markets, and they run a series of farmers markets in the area. And they also do a lot that most people never see. And I've been a loyal customer of theirs for 6 years. And when they asked me to produce a video for them, we talked about what will bring your community in with you? What can you show them that they don't always see? And what we landed on was the farmers market community. What do they see, right? They go to the markets every week. They see what that is. They experience that. They know the good vibes that they get from that. What they don't see are the lives of the farmers and the vendors who they're interacting with every week. So for our video, not only did I capture video at the market, but I also traveled to several farms where we captured that intimate video. And I'm going to play this video for you later in the workshop. But one of the biggest pieces of feedback that they heard was that it felt like they really understood this organization better because it felt like a fuller picture of who it was. So that's really something to think about when you're thinking about what kinds of videos to post. Now, if you're just starting out, right, or if you're doing it on your own, maybe you're a small organization, maybe you're just getting started, think about what are the easy wins, right? So the everyday moments. What are the moments that you get to see that you wish others got to see too, right? The kind of thing where when your partner asks you at the end of your day, how was your day? Or when you go out with a friend and they ask you, what do you do? How's work going? These are the things that you light up when you get to tell them, this is what happened at work today. I saw this person do this and it changed their life, and I'm so thrilled about it. Those are the moments you should be seeking out and showing the world because they don't get to see it the way that you do. Behind the scenes, take your audience inside your walls. That's what video can do that no other medium can do, right? Just a tour of your facility, showing them an interesting part of your day. If it feeds back into your why, absolutely bring people in so that they connect with you further. And then testimonials. And obviously, the obvious idea here is reach out to clients, but you can really cast a wide net because I'm sure no matter what you do, you don't just have clients, right? You have stakeholders, partners, your community, right? So many people who would speak highly of your organization. And I always like to ask, who are your evangelists, right? Who are the people where if you just put your phone in front of them, they will be overjoyed to talk for 5 minutes about why your nonprofit is the best thing that there is. So those are some ways to just get on the board. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I think that's such an important thing when you're just getting started is like finding those easy wins, the things that only take a few minutes to actually do, right? Capture it on your cell phone, do what you need to do. But it's quick content that serves your mission and gets you on the board. We've got a question from Nicole Johnson. You ask, what if we have different audiences, clients, board members, potential funders? Should we create video strategies for each audience, or should we treat social media video as content for a broader general audience? So that's a great, great question, Nicole. I would say the first thing, don't try to do it all at once, right? Prioritize what is the audience that most immediately serves your needs. And also, what is the audience that the videos that you can create will most immediately affect, right? And connect with. So I think when it comes to social media, that's the way we all get suckered into video because that's where we mostly see video is on Instagram or on Facebook or on TikTok. And so that seems like the obvious place to start. And again, that's what we did with Lecatech because we had a very specific mission to build our community. But again, that might not fit where your audience is, right? If your board members are on Instagram, great. But if you're communicating with your board members via email, if that's how you typically get in touch with them, maybe that's the way. Maybe it's a video that you post to YouTube and then you email the board members with the link so that they can watch it on their own time. I always say that it's best to try to reach people where they are and also reach people where they're used to hearing from you. And that's a large way to determine what to attack first. But yeah, I would say the one thing you don't want to do, ultimately, yes, it's great to be able to categorize by different audiences. But if you're first getting started, I wouldn't try to segment so fast. I would just focus on the primary audience that suits your needs and create videos that suit them. And there's a good chance that there'll also be overlap there and that the folks in some of your other segments will also get a lot out of it. But stay focused on one before you try to hit everybody. And one more question before we move on from Pam. How can we share video with funders who want to know impact and who do not want you to include any external links in a grant application? That's a great question, and that's a logistical question that I don't know that I would be I would have a catch-all answer for, right? Because oftentimes with grant applications, if they want a link, they'll say that expressly, right? Or if they don't want a link, they'll also say that expressly. Um, and you have to go with what their rules are. You would never want to force, you would never want to deliberately do something that a grant requester has asked you not to do. But again, I would just think about how you typically communicate with your funders. If it's not within the confines of a grant application, what is your traditional method with them? And also, I would say it's not the most efficient way to share videos, but the in-person element. If you tend to meet with your funders in person and you're having coffee with them for an hour, it's so easy to have a video ready on your phone and go, by the way, let me just show you what we've been doing. And again, it doesn't have to be the fully produced 3-minute video. It can be, let me show you this great moment that happened the other day. And it's 30 seconds, but you've used video to take that person inside your walls. And I think most funders do want you to take them inside your walls because that's what they don't get to experience. So the other question that I would ask to you, and that I think is a really important one, because we've already talked about the importance of authenticity, and that leads to this. Are you willing to be vulnerable? Because a lot of times that's what authenticity looks like. And it's not an easy thing for a nonprofit to go out and do. It's an easy thing to say that, yes, you are willing to be vulnerable, but it's often a lot tougher to put that into practice. I'm going to show you a video of the last major project that I worked on as a journalist. It was a documentary about student parents. So these are college students who are going to school while raising a child. In my research, I spoke with many organizations that work in this space and advocate for these students. But when it came time for the documentary, I didn't interview any of those organizations. Instead, I spent a full day in the life of 4 student parents all over the country, and I interviewed them. So I'll play for you the trailer, and I want you to focus on why I chose this way to tell this story.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Gotcha.
I'm empowered every day, going to school,
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
being a father.
You're losing.
Remember, enfrente, atrás, arriba. I want my son to learn how to be fearless in this world, despite anything that goes his way.
Oh my God, my class is in 20 minutes.
Good for you.
So you've been in college for 6 years.
Yes.
Your nose is red, so you're really Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
No, I'm not.
Okay, sorry. Okay, we'll be back.
You never know whether like a person would be willing to help you unless you ask. And I don't do that. I don't ask.
Good evening. A lot of what I think about every day is that, it's not his burden to bear.
She sees me, taking classes at nighttime, or she sees me being in school.
My laptop died.
If you're taking one class a semester and it takes you 8 years to get through, that's okay because you're doing it.
I am a single father. Love you.
Love you too.
I work full-time and also go to school full-time. It is hard as hell. It's all for a purpose, it's all for a reason, and it's unique to me.
I'd love for you to write in the chat what were the moments in that connected with you. And while you're doing that, I actually have to share this because this is the first time I've watched that trailer in the last few days. And the young woman whose laptop dies, she just posted on LinkedIn that she is not only graduating in a week or two, but is graduating with like ridiculously high honors. And oh my gosh, if I went to her LinkedIn, there were like 12 different things that she talked about achieving this year. So a super not a happy ending to her story, but a happy continuation of her story. Um, so I'm just excited to share that too. So what were the moments that hit for you? So it says, shows doesn't tell. Pam wrote that. When the father looked directly at the camera and said, "It is hard," that hit home. And by the way, he said that's not the full thing he said, right? He said, "It is hard as hell." And I want you to think about how many of you who are nonprofit leaders, or how many of those of you who work in leadership and work with nonprofit leaders, how many executive directors of a nonprofit do you know that would go out on camera in any capacity and say, what we do is hard as hell? Even though what you do is hard as hell, right? Like, my gosh, the work that we do in the nonprofit space and the challenges that hit us all the time. And how real was it when he said that, right? Um, Darian Burns wrote, "Seeing the kids." That's another really great lesson, right? Like the kids, they don't do what they're supposed to do, right? The mother makes a joke and the kid's like, "No, I'm not Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer." The other mother is talking about how hard she's working, and her daughter says, "Good for you." Right? Like kids are so powerful and they're such effective people to watch on camera because they don't do what they're supposed to do. But so often, and Lillian wrote, "You're losing," as the moment that when the young man, the father's name is Shakur, his son says, "You're losing," during the rock, paper, scissors game. I mean, not only are these unscripted moments, which again, so many nonprofit videos, we feel like we need to script everything in advance and rehearse everything and, you know, definitely go against that instinct, right? Look for the unscripted, look for the authentic. And part of the reason why we do that is because those moments communicate so much of what we're trying to share, right? This is what Lillian wrote in the chat just now. Instant connection. When the kid said, "You're losing," during the rock, paper, scissors, what a message to the pressure of their courses in parenting, right? So it's not just a cute moment. It's not just a moment that's sweet and, maybe if you're a parent, makes you think of your own connection with your child, right? It also speaks to what we're talking about. It speaks to how being a parent and a student at the same time is so challenging. Marcy Bryant said the same thing when you talked about, Marcy, you wrote the kid saying, "No, I'm not about being Rudolph," right? Parenting is hard. This mom is already stressed with learning, and she's just trying to drop her son off at school and make a funny little joke, and her son won't even give her the benefit of the doubt. I have an 8 and a 6-year old. Do you know how real that moment is? And I'm not in college. And Avanti is her name, and she is in college. And again, the point is, I go back to when you're thinking about your own video, right? Who has the best story to tell? Who has the best story to tell that fits the message that you're trying to send, right? And then you go out of your way to find those situations that happen, whether it's with your clients or whether it's at an event, whatever the case may be. You go out and you try to find those moments that illustrate that. Because a moment like that, a moment like "you're losing," that goes so much further than anything that you could ever write on a paper, right? Anything that you could ever write in an email. You get enough moments like that and you get really good at finding them and capturing them and showing them, you're winning and you're doing the job that you need to be doing with video. That's how you use video effectively. So wanting to keep going here, after the why and the what, we get to the how, right? So now it's not just about the kind of content that we do, but how do we build a strategy? How do we build a culture in our organization that values and prioritizes visual storytelling? Step one is consistency, knowing your audience, knowing your strengths, your resources, and your limitations. I'm going to focus on those last two because I think they're really important, the resources and the limitations. And this requires honesty, right? Think about the question that I was asked earlier about what do you do when you've got multiple sets of stakeholders that you're trying to reach, right? And my answer was pick one, right? Don't try to do it all at once. And these are the questions you have to ask yourselves, right? What are your resources? Do you have money to hire outside help? Or can your staff take on an extra responsibility or two? And in all cases, what can you realistically expect, right? This is not, as you know, if you're in any form of leadership, if you set the goals too high, or if you try to establish something and you give yourself an unrealistic timeline or something you know you're not going to be able to stick with, it'll submarine your plans before they've even gotten started. And with video, it is so easy to tune out. And I don't mean tuning out of video. I mean tuning out of strategizing around video. Because maybe you post one video on Instagram, it doesn't look great, it doesn't get a lot of reaction, and then you think, well, this isn't worth it, right? And I think it is so important, especially for those of you starting new with video, give yourself the grace to start small, learn as you go, and figure it out as you go. Going back to Lekatech, when I joined the board, everyone on the staff was devoted to our mission. Very few had backgrounds in video or social media. So when I came in, I took a look, and one of the first things I determined was that we had so many beautiful moments happening all around us that only our staff got to experience. What if we shared those? So my ask of our staff wasn't, hey, go out and make a 3-minute video for us. It was simply, when these great moments happen, whether at a play session or at one of our events, just take out your phone and capture it the way that you would in your personal life, right? And so now we have videos like these that our parents take regularly and our staff members take regularly. And again, they're not highly produced. They're not stellar, they're not the best framing or the best lighting, but they show you what happens. And then once you have enough of them, you can start to do more with them. We have a staff member on our team, Jacqueline, who almost from the very beginning of this has really taken it upon herself to go to the next level with video. So she'll create videos like this. Once we get enough of those quick cell phone videos, she'll create montages and post that on Facebook, repurposing video that we've already shot into something that now becomes part of a larger library. So, and the other thing about that is that it doesn't feel out of place for them to have to do this work. But we started small, right? And we gave them the grace to fail, because it's such video, especially when you're dealing with social media, it is so much trial and error. And what you might read about or what ChatGPT might tell you makes the right video might not be what makes the right video or serves the right goals for your audience. So much of it is about just getting out there and doing it, but doing it in ways that you feel are sustainable. So we talk about the tools, and there are some things that you can use. Here are a couple of examples. I think if you want to invest and make low-cost investments into video, I think a small little tripod setup that has a little top light that can be, it makes your videos look a little more pleasing. It enables you to use your hands, right? The one on the right is a lapel microphone that helps you get really crisp sound. A lot of these don't have that lapel format anymore. They have more of almost like a box format. But if you search lapel mic or wireless microphone that connects to your iPhone, they're generally, you can find them for under 3 figures. These might be worth the investment. To be honest, though, if you're doing it yourself, mostly you just need your phone, right? They're easy, they're nimble, they don't require setup, and frankly, what's more important than your gear is the message, if I wanted, I could pan my camera over right now and show you $20,000 worth of equipment and gear that I take out to shoot with my clients. But for what I'm doing right now, speaking on a webinar, I don't need that, right? I just need the camera that's on my laptop. And I happen to have a very nice window on the other side of me that's providing some beautiful natural lighting. So that's all I need, right? And I would say if you're not going to go and hire somebody, right, your message and your clarity of mission far outweighs the tools. And as far as techniques, a couple of, I think we need a much longer session to really get into like how you make a video and how you, especially how you edit one. But in general, I think using a microphone really, really helps because the audio so often can be more important than even the video, the quality of your audio, I mean. Finding your light source, I mentioned I've got this big window behind me. Generally, if you're filming someone on camera, a nice way for them to look pleasing and not washed out is to find whatever your source of light is and make sure that that is coming towards your subject matter. So if you're outside, it's really easy, right? It's usually the sun, or it's almost always the sun. If you can get into a shady place, that's actually really, really great where there's no sunlight whatsoever. But on a sunny day, that sunlight's going to be a nice light that you can cast over somebody. If you're inside a room, there are usually, there are lights on top, but often there are windows. Windows are probably your best friend if you're filming inside of a small room. Just getting close to a window and making sure that whoever's speaking in the video is facing that window. Um, Editing software, again, no way we could possibly dive into all of it now, but CapCut, iMovie is great, and Canva has a robust amount of options. I'm assuming many of you probably already subscribe to Canva because it's free for nonprofits. If not, you should. It's wonderful. But they also have a lot of video editing opportunities on there. And they also have, and the only thing I would say about using software is a lot of times, and Canva is a great example of this, their video platform comes with so many bells and whistles. And I would resist the urge to dive headfirst into them. And by that, I mean, like, you know, you could transition by using a star wipe or, like twirling your video around and doing a lot of things that probably don't fit the voice and the vibe that you're trying to share. A lot of times, something like Canva or iMovie, its greatest benefit is just giving you a quick, down and dirty way to edit a nice video. And you don't need to, turn it into a three-ring circus. It can just be like the video you saw from Lecatech, right? That's just a series of clips back to back. And Canva and those kinds of platforms are great for that because they let you just put a bunch of videos on a timeline very quickly, edit down what you want or trim them down and then export it. So that would be my advice for that. As for where you should use video, I mean, again, social media is the obvious one, but I would encourage you to think much larger than that. Email blasts are a great opportunity. Thank you notes, right? What a way to receive a thank you note. And that could be, like with Lecatech, we'll do thank you notes from our Lecatech kids. And what an interesting way if you're at an event, if you're at a fundraising event and your clients are there or your board members are there, taking quick videos that you can then a week later send off to everybody who attended and give them either a personalized or just like a really nice warm thank you note. Annual reports, fundraising pitches, grant proposals, all of these things that you have to do and you worry that you're going to sound exactly the same as all the other nonprofits in your space. Video enables you to show who you are and look like who you are. And finally, major events, right? And this is, I think, where you see the most immediate and greatest ROI with video. It's also where, you would probably hire someone from the outside to do it. But again, that is a huge opportunity and probably the biggest opportunity where video really, really makes that connection. So for those of you who are just getting started with this, here's what I would do. First, take time this week, shoot a video with no pressure to post it, because that's always what trips us up, right? We think about, oh, what happens when everybody sees this? Just shoot a video. Ask the guidance of your team and your peers, right? Evaluate that video with the framework that we've talked about today, right? Does it fit my larger mission? Is this part of a larger strategy when it comes to video storytelling? Does it fit our brand? Does it fit our voice? Figure out the context, how you're gonna, how you would post it if you did. And then if all of those things add up and you're happy with it, then you post it. But also give yourself the permission not to, right? And for my camera shy friends, when I was in TV news, young reporters would get in we would have to voice track our stories. And young reporters, when you voice track a story, the way you do it is you go into these audio booths that are surrounded by insulation and they're dark and you're speaking into a microphone. It's the most artificial thing in the world. And what happens is young reporters, they wind up speaking very monotonously because it feels so artificial. And when I would work with young reporters, I would teach them to do this. And it's similar to what I tell nonprofit folks to do now. Do multiple takes. First, do the one that you think is at the level that you should do it. And then do a take where you up the energy level by like 30%. And then do a third take where you up the energy level by like 60%, way more than you ever feel like would be right. And then take all three of them and listen to all three of those voice tracks and see what you feel fits right. And more often than not, it was the one that was like way over the top that felt just right for a TV news story. With you guys, I would recommend the same thing. If you're new to this, try a couple of different versions of something. Don't worry about posting it so fast. Get comfortable with it and get comfortable not just with your own presence on camera, but the messages that you're trying to share and the most effective way to do that, right? And then if you're ready for a larger strategy and are thinking about hiring outward, here's the general rule of thumb with that. You DIY because A, it's less expensive, right? It's usually $0, which is great. And it's a more consistent present approach, right? You're using your staff. They can be there to capture great moments when they happen. And if you need short, consistent videos in low stakes contexts, DIY often makes the most sense. You hire someone when, first of all, you've got the budget, right? You hire someone when you need that storytelling expertise, someone who understands the message you're trying to convey and how to effectively do that. And then you hire someone when you have a big stage with big potential for returns. A black tie gala is not the time for an Instagram reel, right? You need a moving, emotional, narratively focused video that shows your audience exactly why they should invest in you. There's a financial investment on your end when you hire someone, but the return on that investment, if you do it right, is going to be so far beyond what you're putting into it that it's not even a question about whether it's worthwhile. And in the end, we talked about consistency, but it's also authenticity. We've talked about that, right? Remembering that the most powerful moments are almost always the realest. And it's ethics, protecting the ones that we serve. And I make sure to emphasize this in my workshops because it's so important and it's so easy to overlook. Because what have we established, right? We've established that most nonprofit leaders want to embrace this. We want to embrace video and visual storytelling, but most nonprofit storytelling is bland and sterile, doesn't create emotional connection. And we know what does is detail, authenticity, and vulnerability. But we believe in the purity of our missions, and we don't want to compromise that or exploit our members. The good news, though, is ethical storytelling can be done and it can work hand in hand. And I'm going to show you an example of a story that we did and show you how we navigated the ethics of that. I also want to flag the time here again. We have about 10 minutes left before 3 o'clock. I will happily stay on an extra 5-10 minutes to answer any questions that you guys might have, just so you're aware. But for now, let's get into ethical storytelling. What is that? To me, I think it means this. It means you tell your story truthfully, you protect your mental and emotional health, right? Always important. And you protect the health of those you serve. So here's a story that I did a few months ago for a nonprofit in Atlanta that provides emergency rental assistance for families in need. They wanted a video for their annual gala, and this is the video that we did. I'll play it for you and then we can talk about it.
Are you gonna act accordingly? Maybe. My name is DeWan Tavia Edward, and
I'm a free rent recipient. Dallas was born May 17th, 2024. It's your horn, go beep beep. I work full time for MARTA. I'm a station agent. I represent all the hard working mothers around the world that get up every morning at 4 o'clock and we don't complain. It's stuck in there. All it takes is for you to get sick, your child gets sick, emergency with your vehicle, and that's it. I have a 13-year-old daughter and a set of twins. Dallas is a twin. Last year when Dallas was born, him and his sister were born 4 months premature. My daughter Daytona passed away during childbirth and Dallas was in the hospital. Everything crashed at one time. I had a baby that I had to cremate. I didn't get paid. I didn't have any sick leave left. You try to make $1 out of 15 cents, it's just not enough. And it's never enough.
How quickly did things turn around once free rent got into the picture?
Immediately. Immediately.
How does it feel to know that you are a winner of Free Rent Atlanta? You get it a full year.
This program has made a way for me to save, and I have to give every single dime that I have. I can go and buy diapers and wipes and not have to worry about, okay, well, do I have enough money to buy detergent? They provide you with a lot of financial information.
How's it going?
All right, how y'all doing? Me and Ashley have done so much saving, investing back into Roots every month. They have resources at different banks, and they work with a lot of different programs.
Dallas.
I've wanted to go back to school for a very long time. I never thought it would be possible. Without free rent, I don't know what I would have done.
Dallas.
I go to Mercer University.
Yeah.
On the pre-nursing track.
How'd you do this first round of classes?
I made the president's list at school, so I think I did pretty well.
I love y'all and I appreciate y'all so much. Thank
Very
y'all.
same to you.
This program is the best thing that has ever happened to me. Playing around. Not so much of a friend, it's more like family. Being in the free rent program, I was able to get my wings and fly.
And that fundraiser, they, in their first year as an organization, raised almost $200,000 in one night, which was a huge, huge win for them. So let's talk about this story. Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate the kind words. Let's talk about this story, right? And let's talk about what might raise concerns, right? And thank you, Abby and Julia, for the compliments. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was a great story to work on. And Duantavia is still doing very well, by the way. They just interviewed her again a few weeks ago, and yeah, she continues to be a success story for them and for herself, which is wonderful. So let's talk about what might raise concerns, right? We filmed inside her house. We filmed with her child, right? Her infant child, and she told her story unfiltered. And that all of these things, and she did all this with an external videographer, right? So these are all areas where before you even get in the room, it's so important to address them because there are a lot of ethical questions here, right? How did we prepare? And how should you prepare? First of all, the organization contacts the client. I think that's really important, right? So obviously, if we're going to interview somebody who you serve, you're going to reach out to them in advance and let them be aware of this. But you also really want to communicate not just the process, but the context, right? So in this case, we explained where the video was going to be shown and why the video was going to be used. And then before I even met Duantavia, we talked on the phone. I always try to, if I'm working with someone specifically, especially if there's not going to be a representative from the organization there, I always try to meet over Zoom if I can, right? And what I always try to do is explain again what I intend to shoot, and then be as transparent as possible. So I let her know I was, the way for us, like, we need to tell your story. would it be okay if we came to your house and filmed video with your son? And I asked before, do you have any questions about this, any concerns about this? Because it's early on in the process when you want to try to flag that, right? What you cannot promise is what the final video is going to look like, right? You can certainly show it to that person, and you probably should show it to that person before it appears at a gala, right, where they're in the audience. But also, you can't promise how people will react. I think that's important to make clear up front. If you post something on social media, the cat's out of the bag, right? If you include the video in an email blast, you can't unsend that email, right? So I think we do need to be clear-eyed, and we need to make sure the people that will be in our videos are clear-eyed just about that part of it. And the way that you can protect people, I think, is first of all, express as much as possible up front. Detect their comfort or discomfort early. I always say this is so important. Like, you shouldn't have to convince somebody to be in your video, right? In part because they'd be more likely to back out midway through the process, and then you're in big trouble, right? And B, if you're more comfortable with the process, you're going to be more likely to open up in the process, and that gives you that authenticity and that vulnerability that makes videos so special. Protect identities when necessary. If you work for, let's say, an organization that works with survivors of domestic violence, any service where trauma is involved, if we're doing trauma-informed storytelling, we always have to take into account the impact that can happen when people not only relive that trauma in an interview, but then when they see that, they see their story told in a video, and potentially people, a whole new group of people learn about their story. So we have to make sure that we ask those questions, protect identities, and then when in doubt, ask, right? And this also applies to what to look for in a professional, right? If you're looking to hire someone, I would say first check out their work and ask, how does their other work make you feel, right? Like, do you feel connected to the organization that hired this person? Do you understand what makes that organization different than every other one that's in that space? Does the videographer grasp your measures of success? Do they know what you're trying to achieve? And can they craft a video that will steer towards that? Do they think in terms of visuals, or do they think in terms of narratives, right? It's the difference between pretty pictures and a true story. And finally, most importantly, will they protect those that you serve? Because you give a lot of control to someone when you hire them. And it's so important that you do that kind of legwork beforehand, before you hire them, before you start paying them money. Make sure that they will be good stewards of this work that you're asking them to do. So we've got a few minutes left. That is everything that I'm happy to share today. And of course, I'm happy to answer any questions. And I do want to share too, if you would like to work with me directly, you are more than welcome to set up a time to chat. There is so much that we could talk about and cover. The QR code on the screen leads to my online calendar. And I work with nonprofits of all sizes, often in different ways, right? So if you're a very small nonprofit, oftentimes small nonprofits hire me for one-on-one coaching, where we go in depth to really build your strategy, kind of taking what we talked about today and turning it into a next level conversation that you can run with for the long term. Larger nonprofits hire me all the time for impact videos like the one you just watched, gala videos, or even as a long-term video partner to create consistent, excellent stories about your work. And I'll just close by saying, as I said, this work absolutely energizes me. I've seen the results that it brings for my clients. And I'm just so thrilled to be able to do it and to be able to work with organizations like yours. So please reach out to me, and I just want to express my sincerest appreciation for all that you do. So with that, I will take any questions that you have. Somebody wrote this was the fastest hour, the fastest hour webinar I've ever attended. That is, yes, that is a high compliment. I appreciate that. Okay, we've got a question from Maribel. Would you recommend to add AI images if needed? So that's a great question, and certainly a place where we're all kind of in that space where we're thinking about that. I would first say that, AI should never be the centerpiece of what you're doing, right? Like, everything we've talked about around authenticity, you even if you think about websites, right? Like a lot of us in the nonprofit space, one of the first things we do with our websites is we try to find authentic images from our own services that we put on our websites, right? And you can always tell the nonprofits that they've just got stock photos that look like, Anytown, USA. And again, that just creates a distance and that creates a disconnect from the people that you're trying to reach. So I think I'm not going to say a blanket no to adding AI images, but I think it really is context dependent. Um, and I'm trying to think of an example of where that would make sense, but I do think um, before you use an AI image, I would just think long and hard, is there a way you can represent it without that? Now, one thing where I think AI can be helpful is in the animation space. I think Canva is very good at this as well. I'm going to grab a quick sip of water here. Um, So Canva's very good at that. I think a lot of times for nonprofits where what we do and the impact we make can be very complicated to explain, I think a great animation can go a long way with that. And if you call that AI, that I think is a way where AI can have a place. That's something that most videographers like myself, we will do that as part of what we do. That's part of just the skills that we bring to the table. But if you're in a DIY space, I do think that's something to look at and see how it could be worth your while. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you very much. I saw. Okay, question from Chelsea. How do you avoid the issue of blurry videos from live streams or uploading and downloading from multiple storage interfaces and devices? So that's a good question. So the blurry videos from live streams, that's going to be a connection question, right? So really the best thing there is just going to be your Ethernet. Making sure you're using, like today, I almost always use Wi-Fi in my life, but when I'm doing a webinar or a podcast, I hook up to one of these Ethernet cables and went out, bought a cable because I knew that I did not want my signal to drop when I was speaking to all of you, right? So I think that's the first thing. And then I would just say when it comes to uploading and downloading, keeping the raw content as long as you can. Now, raw content is typically larger in terms of file size, but that's what's going to retain the video at its most pure. There's really no loss from, if you have a video clip and you upload it and download it and re-upload it and re-download it and keep doing that, there's really no loss of quality from that. Where you lose the quality is when you transfer it into a new form. So, and this is getting a little technical, but if you have an MOV file and you save it as an MP4, or if you have a raw video clip and then you put it into, a YouTube video or an Instagram post, those kinds of things can degrade the quality. So that would be my answer to that question, Chelsea. Thank you for the question. Terry Carmody asks, we can't show our clients' faces, so we are limited. We show backs, hands, etc. Any suggestions to do better? Yeah, and this is a great question. Terry, send me an email when this is all done, and I'm going to put my email in the chat for anyone who would like to email me directly. But there's a really great movement in the ethical storytelling space right now. It's becoming a very vocal movement, which I really appreciate because, in journalism, that was always just like in our DNA, is to make sure that, we're always telling the truth and we're not staging anything, right? And I see it now in nonprofits more than ever that you're really so concerned about doing right by the people you serve. And obviously, Terry, what you're talking about, so important, right? One of the interesting trends I've seen is called composite storytelling, where you take multiple stories, multiple client stories, you combine it to one, and maybe you do it as like a text animation, or maybe you do it again. Here's an example where AI images can actually be useful if done right, right? Like, figuring out a way to tell that story where you can use their stories, but in a way that combines them, and so it's not specific to one person. And usually those stories also have an asterisk on them that say, this is a composite. of several of our members. So you're being transparent, you're being authentic, but you're not divulging people's identities. I think showing backs and hands is perfectly acceptable. I think, again, in the nonprofit space, you are given more grace than most because anybody who watches your video is going to understand if you can't show your faces, it doesn't matter how it looks. It matters that you're doing right by the people that you serve. So I don't think there's any shame or, any reason to shy away from that. Um, but yeah, I think composite storytelling is really interesting. And if you email me, Terry, I can point you to a few resources on that specifically. I have to go look them up or else I would just shout them out here. But there are a couple of people who are really doing great work in this area and could probably be helpful for you. Um, Julia asks, is overlay of sound possible in video editing tools? It should be. I haven't seen an instance where it wasn't. Um, so typically when you insert a video clip into Canva or whatever, the audio will go in with it, and often you can even control the volume levels of that. So that's very helpful there too. Um, and obviously you can also put music into a video like that. Um, so yes, you certainly can do that, and you should be able to do that in the platforms that are out there now. Um, I'm looking. And Nicole, a former journalist. Love it. You find my background inspiring. Before shifting to video content creation, were you a reporter or a visual journalist videographer? I was actually both. So I was what they call a solo video journalist, where I people knew me as a reporter because they would see me on the air and I would voice my stories, but I would also shoot and edit all of my own stories. So for about 20 plus years, I was on my own, first on the local level, largely in Atlanta, where I live now, but then at the national level with Scripps Media, which we have stationed in Tampa, which I know many of you are based out of Tampa. So yeah, I mean it's it's such a fulfilling field, and I have no love lost for it, and such a critical field. But I also feel just what I do now, I'm able to work with organizations directly, and I've had several clients who I did stories on as a reporter who have since reached back out to me to have me work with them now and craft a video that's, it's there's nothing wrong. It's great when, as a nonprofit, you can point to a news story, right, and show the video from that, but it's only so far that it can take you. And as a lot of these individuals who reach back out to me, they want me to create a video that is specifically geared towards their audience, right? Not a news audience, and not with a news angle, but with their priorities in mind. And yeah, so it's really great. And the kinds of storytelling that I did so often was exactly that. My last job was traveling the country every other week. I would go to a different city, 42 states in 3 years, and I would go into communities and often and tell the stories of the issues folks were facing and the people bringing solutions. And as you can imagine, so often those were nonprofits. And I'll just say real quick before I say goodbye, one of my favorite stories I ever did was when I was a reporter within Atlanta. It was with three brothers who had signed up for the St. Pete Triathlon. They were from Atlanta, and one of the brothers had cerebral palsy and was in a wheelchair. And they decided that they were going to do a triathlon together. And the one that they chose to do was the St. Pete Triathlon right along the water there in the bay. So one of my favorite stories I've ever done, and it took me to Tampa to do it. And that group, by the way, those brothers now have their own organization where they help athletes with assisted uh, distance and training activities like marathons and triathlons and all those things. So yeah. Anyway, I will leave the door open for one more minute for questions, but it looks like I've covered all the ones that are in there so far. And oh, one from Marcy. Okay, what would be a good way to transition video to a clip of someone speaking? Can you, Marcy, if you're still there, can you elaborate on that a little bit? I think I know what you're asking, but I want to make sure that in fact, if you want, Marcy, you can take yourself off mute, um, and just ask me directly.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. So I've kind of done something similar before in the past, but I always felt that the video was a bit amateurish, being that it was kind of a weird, like 1 to 3 seconds of transition between like a panning video of like a building or something and then to somebody speaking. So, what would be a good transitional way to make it look 100% professional, but I did it?
Great question. So I'm not 100% sure on this. So let me know if I'm wrong on this. But I think with most editing most of the editing software out there, I think that you can separate the audio layer from the video layer. And if you watch a lot of professional pieces, you'll notice that if someone has a 6 second soundbite, the first 2 or 3 seconds will be covered by whatever the video is that came before it. And that's again, if you another thing that you can do, you don't just have to rely on Canva and iMovie. Like you could invest in learning Final Cut Pro, and paying for that software. That's a few $100s, but it really when you learn it and you get good at it, it really gives you so much more control over a lot of that. Um, and that's not a huge investment for the number of times that you'll use it, right? Um, and that is what professional editing software enables you to do with a lot more ease. But I do believe you can do that in Canva and iMovie. Don't hold me to that, but I do think that that's possible. But otherwise, yeah, I would say to try to trim the time before and at the end of sound bites to make sure that it's not, that you're not starting too early or ending too late. I think the time the what's the word? The the pinpoint nature of your edits can actually go a long way. I was actually just working with a nonprofit recently that had hired me to do the one-on-one training with them, and we were working on a video that they had used Canva for. And they showed me this video that they had done, and it actually was really, really good, but you could tell that they just hadn't tightened it up yet. And there were like 2 seconds in between each soundbite that they cut to. And all we did was just trim that a little bit each way so that it just kind of went seamlessly from one soundbite to the next. And they were shocked how quickly that just increased the production value of what they were doing. So I would say that's something, again, when we talk about using the Canvas and the iMovies of the world, it's not so much that they give you all of these effects and all these different things you can do. It's that they enable you to have a certain amount of control over making a smooth, crisp, edited piece. And the timing between those edits is a huge, huge part of that. So figuring out how to overlay, figuring out, not having that buffer time and making sure that, that you are very intentional about going through each of those edit points, that's really, really helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and say that that is it. Again, you're more than welcome to reach out to me, and I will just throw my email in the chat one more time as well. For those of you with much smaller nonprofits, again, I do plenty of one-to-one coaching and building out strategic plans. For larger nonprofits, if you're ready for that big impact video, or if you have a gala coming up, or if you're looking for more long-term consistent content, I would love to talk with you. So feel free, click on the QR code. It'll take you to my calendar, and we can absolutely chat. So thank you guys so much. It was a pleasure. And thank you for the great questions. Thank you for the kind words. And I wish you all the best in your storytelling and in all this great work that you do.
And a big thank you to you, Matt, so much for all this incredible content you've shared with us and a thoughtful presentation. And thank you to everyone that has joined, or the remaining people that stayed to hear all the questions. We'll be sharing this recording afterwards, so stay tuned. And we will also be sending a survey, so please share your feedback with us. But please keep your eyes out for upcoming webinars, and we hope to see you soon. Have a great afternoon. Take care.